Hey everybody, welcome back. You're thinking about building an app on that ChatGPT App Store and you're just feeling a little bit overwhelmed and probably thinking, should I continue? Is this something that I can even do? Well, today we're going to go over the structure of a ChatGPT app, and what you're going to see is that it makes sense. It's not that complicated once you understand how the app functions. And by the end of this video, you're going to feel a lot better and feel confident that you can build an app for the ChatGPT App Store. If you'd like to follow along file by file, go ahead and clone one of the repositories that we've already built for you. It's completely free. It's on GitHub. It's a game called The Riddler, which is a fully functioning ChatGPT app, which you can clone and modify on your computer. So today I'm using Windsurf as my IDE. It's my IDE of preference. I like it more than Cursor or Anti-Gravity for now. And we're going to go through file by file and I'll explain to you the structure of the OpenAI apps. When you open an app inside of ChatGPT, you see something that you can interact with. So let's start there. What you're seeing is the actual HTML file. The HTML file is located here in the Assets folder. The HTML file is the final product. It's basically the page that loads when you preview the widget in your browser. And what this file does is it defines the structure, it decides the elements, and it pulls in two very important files, which are the CSS file and the .js file. So let's go into the CSS file. The CSS file is basically the control of how the page looks. When you decide on a UX or a UI or color scheme or spacing or fonts, that's where all of that information is stored in the CSS file, not in the HTML file. So you can think of CSS as how the page looks. Next is the JavaScript file. It's the .js file. What this does is it controls how the page behaves. So it tells the HTML file what to do when a button is clicked, it tells how data is sent or received, and it shows how data shows up on the page. So the HTML you can think of as like a skeleton. The CSS file is the skin, it's how it looks, and the JavaScript is the muscles, it's how it functions. The server file is the brains of the operation. So the server file has a lot of the information that ChatGPT needs to know when it's communicating with your app. So think of this as the brain that talks to ChatGPT. It has the information like what is the name of the widget? What is the description of the widget? What are the keywords that ChatGPT needs to look for when someone is prompting your widget? It looks for things like the invoking phrases. It also shows ChatGPT when not to call your widget. It has a lot of the metadata that ChatGPT needs to know about your widget. When you're building your app, you don't need to focus as much on the server.ts file immediately. That is what you need to edit and modify when you want the app to live on ChatGPT. But before that happens, you have to actually build your app. And that's where you focus on the files that we mentioned before, which is the CSS, the HTML, and the .js files. Now, the good news is that you don't have to go in and manually update any of those files, the CSS, the HTML, or the JS file. We have already built a project for you that's functioning, and so you can do all of this from within the prompts within your ID. So as a quick summary, when you're modifying your very first project and you want to modify how it looks, you'll be modifying the CSS file. When you want to modify what the project does, how it functions, you want to modify the .js file. And the HTML file is something that I have never modified other than the metadata at the top of the page. This is something that can be modified either manually or through prompt. Because remember, the HTML file is just the output of the CSS and the JS files. So most of the modifications will be in the JS and the .css. Now, remember again that you don't have to manually modify those files. You can do all of that with prompt. And the AI is good enough now where when you say, I want to modify the button function, It knows that that goes into the JS file. You don't even need to tell it. So this is a more of a video for your own understanding of how this app functions. The AI already understands this. Now, a quick pro tip, the very first time that you launch a project that you clone from GitHub, when you launch it on localhost 8000, you might get a blank white screen. This happens probably 70% of the time. The reason is because the HTML file is not being built. You have to go back into the prompt and say, I want you to build the HTML file using the JS and the CSS files. When you say that, it will launch it on port 8000 or whatever local host you're using and actually show you the widget. So I hope this has been helpful for you. It's a very quick video, a very high level overview. We will be going more in depth into the individual files of this project. However, for now, it's enough information to get started. We also have a video about how to clone our existing project, the Riddler, and get started modifying that project without needing to know anything about the file structure. I always recommend having at least a general understanding of the files because that will be helpful when you start to build more complicated applications. We hope you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for more.